Good evening, everybody. Happy Friday night. Shabbat Shalom. My name is Samuel, and this is Body Made of Stars. And I'm coming to you tonight. It's August 12th, and I'm talking in the aftermath of the super full Sturgeon moon conjunct Saturn in Aquarius that was exact just about 24 hours ago. And, why am I coming to you today? Well, yesterday also was my lovely partner's birthday. And it's just been one of those weeks. I think it's probably been like that for a lot of us, where there's just been a lot going on, and I've hardly had a moment to myself to talk to all of y'all and to really take a moment to take stock. It's high summer. We call it the Lion's Gate. We call it Leo season. We call it the dog days. Call it what you will. But it is in so many ways the height of the sun, the peak of the year. And a lot is going on astrologically, socially, spiritually, electromagnetically, and I'm here to make some sense of it. So let me just give you a rundown of what we'll cover in the next 15 or 20 minutes. So, of course, the Aquarius full moon, conjunct Saturn. It was at 22 degrees, and Saturn was right there at, I think, 19. So it's a Saturnian full moon in a profound sense. Mercury's recent entrance to Virgo, its sign of its domicile, its rulership, and its exaltation. Mercury is adored in Virgo, almost more so than Gemini. I think Gemini, we've got a little sun, we've got a little Venus, we've even got a little Mars in Gemini, but it's like Virgo is a truly mercurial sign. Venus just today, really, fully entering Leo, which I'm celebrating. I am a natal Venus Leo denizen, and you know him when you see him, especially if they're Leo sun people. But for me, I'm a Gemini sun person with a Leo Mars, Venus, Jupiter, and it's always nice when Venus comes to touch your own sign. But there's many potentizing aspects to Venus and Leo. The royal queen, it's the Cleopatra Hatshepsut, it's the female pharaoh. And it's, what does she love? Gold and lapis and dream work and lotus and the truly fine things in life, the things that are not just physical. Because although Leo is the king, he's not so much residing in the king of land and the king of stuff. It's more the king of the spiritual realms, the energetic, the fire realms. And what that means, at least as I experience it with my Venus and Leo, is that I'm drawn to refinement rather than plenty. I'd rather have a few drops of the right stuff than, a 2-liter bottle of Coca-Cola. And so Venus has entered Leo. Jupiter is retrograding in Aries. And what we are currently completing, I would say, at least, for this part of the year, is one of the trickiest, nastiest, down in the dump, angry, difficult, challenging squares between Saturn and the moon over in Aquarius. On one side, on the far side, or the near side, depends where you stand, we've got the Leo, first Mercury, then Sun, now Venus. And in the crux, we have the North Node, Uranus, and Mars in Taurus. So these 3 signs, and then throw in the South Node in Scorpio, and you have had this very tricky fixed grand cross. And that has been, the predominant theme and catalyst in this first 2 weeks of August. So let's start there, because that one is the longest lasting and most impactful of what's going on in the sky right now. When we talk about the bullpen, the lineup that we had earlier this month in Taurus, pretty historic one, one that doesn't come around too often, and when it does, there's palpable shifts between Uranus and the North Node, and then throw Mars into the mix, and you've got this revolutionary restructuring, reordering, and ready to rumble. When you put Mars in there, like, it's not just an idea, it's an action. It's a thing that is happening physically right now, and when it happens in the sign of Taurus, we are talking about the physical. We are talking about the way we eat, the way we grow and garden and farm, the way we relate to our local environment, which, could mean stewardship, or it could mean exploitation. It has the both sides, of this dichotomy. New forms of stewardship, new forms of exploitation coming online. And you know what? Let me do my viewers a favor. Let's fuck that. Yeah. We're gonna put this on YouTube. This doesn't need to be sparkling the whole time. Hey, Taurus, also simplicity. Getting back to basics. That looks right. And there we go. Get my Taurus in there. Always shirtless, and I don't do it on purpose. I'm not trying to show off. I'm just laying on a hot, sunny island in a yurt in the middle of August, and it's a lot easier to cool down when you're not wearing a bunch of fabric on your chest. So forgive my readjustment. That feels better. That looks better. When Mars, Uranus, and the North Node conjoin, as they did earlier this month, now Mars is moving on, the North Node is moving back, as it always does. We are in a vortex of change in the way we go about our physical lives. And so that can be really good news for some of us. That can be really bad news for others. I have a dear friend here on the island who is a Taurus and feels overwhelmed by all this kind of energy of transformation, revolution, lightning bolt, change, on her sun and Venus and Mercury, and in these intimate places. But for those of us with other fixed signs, it's like an opportunity to get an angle on how we're going to do business going forward. So that could mean a new job. That could mean a new project. It's time to get handsy. It's time to get rooted. It's time it's time to get handy and get connected to how we live our lives. It's like this is the return of the age of the generalist. Talk about, maybe the theme of this Uranus and Taurus all together over these 6-7 years. It's like permaculture is not some agricultural system that someone else does. It's a lifestyle practice that we all must engage in. Regardless of whether you live in the city or the country, if you're rich or you're poor, if you're black or you're white. It's like, it's a framework, and we can call it permaculture, we can call it indigenous ways of relating, there's many layers to it, but it's like getting back to the basics and connecting with your local environment, learning how to build a garden, learning how to build a shelf, learning how to really feed and nourish yourself and your partners. And, you know, we have all this great energy, and Mars gives us the power to do it. It's not always comfortable, but it's worth it. But then we have Sauron, you know, the motherfucking evil eye of Saturn, who we love and respect in this house and everywhere, you know, but who does what he does, which is bring the weight, you know, bring the pain, bring the constriction and restriction and suffering, you know, on the wheel of karma. And he's casting his eye on this change. And it reminds me so much, you know, Saturn's a very political sign. They're a very political planet. Aquarius is a very political sign. And as Saturn transits through his latter rulership of Aquarius, because he rules Capricorn and Aquarius, fans of the show will know, you know, the zodiac is two petals, you know, with Saturn at the root and then the sun and the moon at the top, and they're self-similar as you go up. This divine and ever reoccurring courtship and marriage, you know, between the sun and the moon, that makes the earth habitable. And with Saturn at the base of that, we can see the political dealings era to era. So it's like that Taurus dynamic that I was just describing, you know, the concrete, like home, grounded, physical, reformation, revolution, you know, upgrading that we do with Uranus in the North Node, and then Mars catalyzing that. Saturn is like the WEF, saying, you know what, Dutch farmers, fuck you. We want synthetic meat, synthetic protein owned by billionaires, and, like, you know, all the livelihoods can just go out the motherfucking window, because we have another agenda, you know, that's at play, that is very cold and very inhuman and very Aquarian in the other sense of, you know, the dark side of Aquarius. And we've been getting to know this dark side. And thank God for love. Thank God for the human urge to connect, to feel, to process, to transform, and to cope. And, you know, it's really worth reminding everyone that it looks, you know, if you follow the news, you think we're living in a dark age, but we are living on the precipice of a golden age of human relating. And let's talk about that, because that's where the moon comes in. The moon in Aquarius, the sign that my mother was born under, my Gemini mom with her Aquarius moon. And what did she do with her life? Well, it's such a fitting story. She started as an editor and became a psychologist who, instead of having a private practice that only catered to those who were willing and able and had the time, she was a school psychologist in a rather poor district in Bergen County in New Jersey, and she dedicated her professional life to dealing with the mental health challenges faced by underprivileged teenagers who are recovering 100% of the time from traumatic experiences, traumatic upbringings, you know, and things far outside their control, you know, and yet we're locked in a system that punished them for being traumatized and being of color, you know, non-white. And my mom did this awesome work of getting them through that system and out the other side as human beings with a chance to live their lives. And, you know, that's sort of a window into the other side of Aquarius. And in fact, that's a window into the Aquarian moon sense and sensibility and the bearing of technology and wisdom and craft that they bring to the table. You know, I'm really proud of her. She's a neurotic woman. She is who she is. Our relationship is not perfect, but, you know, I'm so inspired by what she did with her life to help others in this very selfless way. And obviously she was helping herself. She's Cancer rising, so it's like her first priority was me and my younger sister, you know, and so she was dedicated to being a mother first, and that's how she paid the bills. And she did it by applying this Aquarian moon sensibility, which is how to navigate systems. So the moon crossing through yesterday and today, this Aquarius terrain, which is been paved over the last few years by Saturn. And, you know, paved paradise, put up a parking lot, baby. You know, when my man drove away in a big yellow taxi last night, I heard the screen door slam. And, it's, you know, there's so many things in culture that speak to this transformation that is been going, as Noam Chomsky said in 93, for 501 years. It's year 501 in 93, so what does that make it now? It makes it year 530 since 1492, the start of the Inquisition, and the start of the colonization process of Europeans who were exporting their misery onto the rest of the world and are now threatening, whose systems of misery that they exported are now threatening the biological life support systems on every level of this planet, you know? And the key is not to further immiserate and blame someone. The key is to start healing the trauma. And that's what I was getting into. Because when I say we're on the cusp of a golden age, or maybe a silver age, at least, I'm thinking about how for hundreds of generations, our forefathers and foremothers and foretheys and thems, you know, were at the mercy of tools to navigate the human experience that were not up to the task. They were under-resourced, and they took their trauma out on their families, on the environment, on tribes of people who were different than them, you know, and nations and races and religions. And it's because they didn't have the tools to process trauma. And it's not that we have all the tools now, but we have tools. We can heal, you know. I want anyone listening to this to know that even if your life hasn't been easy up until this point, and few people's have been, you can heal. Because now, as we enter this silver age of Aquarius, we are resourcing ourselves as a global community to care for ourselves, and from there to care for one another. And really what we need to do, tear off the band-aid or the skein, you know, the veil of this misaligned value structure that we call capitalism, and really not far away, if we can start to get proper value ascribed to the things that actually matter, you know, we can get through whatever is coming down the pipe, you know. And it's about embracing the golden side, the silver, beautiful side of the age of Aquarius, rather than the Saturnian, detached, controlled, you know, outer space, you know, like gray, zeta reticulan energy that really, you know, I see represented in the global scene, unfortunately, by many of the most powerful people. And I think Bill Gates is perhaps the perfect summation of this. It's just where he thinks of, like, humans as cattle and numbers. Maybe not even cattle, maybe numbers. He's not a big fan of cattle. To be manipulated, you know. And it's like, that's why he's the biggest. It's like, sure, he likes money, but it's like, I think it's about something more than that. And of course, when you research his history and realize that, you know, His father was close with Sanger, who's the chief eugenicist, and that, a lot of the policies and programs that him and his wife and the rest of that kind of cohort propound and export to the world. It is Aquarian in the very Saturnian sense, and Saturnian in the moon sense, or excuse me, Aquarian in the moon sense, might mean something quite different. And you know what it comes from. And this is where I'll take us and maybe leave us off. It comes back to the sign that the sun is in presently. It comes back to Leo, opposite Aquarius. If Aquarius is the ascendant collective, Leo is the ascendant self. It's the realized self, individual. The king, the queen, the prince, the princess. Or as, again, I like to include my non-binary friends, and we say the queen, the non-binary queen, king, queen, all of the above, that's Leo. And if we want to get to the good side of the age of Aquarius, and we are in for it, guys, because starting 2024, Pluto is moving into Aquarius, and this dying empire, Cotter Wall, post 2008, post George Bush kind of American empire that has been like the Pluto and Capricorn story for the last 16 years or whatever, 14 so far, and it'll be 16 by the end of it. That's going to give way to a different story, which is, going to break according to how, who gets past the holla. And it's like, we got to tear off our piece for the warm-blooded, living, breathing, loving, healing humanity. And I hope that we all, who listen to this podcast and who are sharing the insights that they are gleaning, that we make our voices heard. Because, I am a yeoman, I am a student in this storytelling, and yet I feel like I've been given so much and learned so much about where we are headed as a species, as a collective, by studying this ancient science of time. And listen, if it came down and it was me or me trusting some of the authority figures that are, say, in the WEF, I'm putting my chips on myself, man. I'm betting on myself, and I'm betting on you. We don't need to be rich and famous. We are the leading edge of the evolution and restoration, of this new era of humanity. And that's why I have as the subheading of this podcast, Astrology for a New Era, where it's humanist, it's, I say, intersectional, and evolutionary, and revolutionary, sure, man, Viva Revolucion, we got to look at Colombia, Chile, Peru, Mexico, even Costa Rica, in our own funny way down there, and soon to be Brazil, Lord willing, and all of Latin America is having revolutions that are in favor of the people and, in favor of a future for the ecology and for the humanity. So it's not that far away. It's just a mindset, and the control, manipulation through the media that happens in North America that makes it seem impossible. It's very possible, and it's closer than you think. With that said, Jupiter's getting done with his time in Aries. He's retrograding back to Pisces, and this is a great time to plant a seed. It might be the middle of summer now, but if you're thinking long term, what are you building that will come to fruit? Not this year, not this fall, not this winter, next summer and next spring, when Jupiter returns to these degrees of Aries and starts his new 12-year cycle in earnest. We got the taste now, and because the sun's backing it up, and now Venus is going to trine this Jupiter, and we've got this beautiful opportunity to plant a seed, of growth, of opportunity, an opportunity to have an opportunity, this seeds of life projects and visions and dreams that you have the power to manifest, and that will take you on the ride of your life over the next 12 years. So that's that Jupiter in Aries. And then Pisces, nourish it. We'll have Jupiter return to Pisces later this fall, and I'm just very fascinated by this Jupiter journey, this dance between the new cycle in Aries and the old one in Pisces, and how it went over the cusp already. It's going to go back retrograde, and then at the start of 2023 it's going to move decisively back to Aries. So that's just one more thing to keep abreast of. And Mercury in Virgo, we talked about, it's a great time to organize your thoughts. Take some time away from the social scene, from the drinks by the pool or the lake, and send off those emails. It's like Mercury in Virgo, we've got the verbiage, we've got the communication gusto, and so do the people receiving your messages. So bounce it back and forth. Let's build stuff. Give me a shout if you want to do a reading. If you need help with electional astrology, timing of your business, your marriage, your divorce. I gave a reading yesterday, just about that process that a friend is going through in Costa Rica. And just know that you are living in a body made of stars, and I love you so much. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.